In the heart of the night, within the dimly lit booth of WJXM, I found solace in the hum of the late hours. The clock's hands were edging past 2 a.m., a time when the world seemed to pause, and the air outside hung heavy with silence. I, Alex Monroe, had been the voice of the night shift for years, a comforting presence for the insomniacs, the late workers, and the lost souls seeking a flicker of connection in the static of the airwaves. My voice, a familiar whisper against the backdrop of the night, offered solace to the unseen audience that scattered across the sleeping city. Tonight, however, a palpable sense of unease threaded through the melody of the music I played. My fingers absently twisted a pen, an unconscious response to the anticipation coiling within me. The studio, usually filled with warmth and amber lights, felt colder, its shadows stretching out like tendrils across the cluttered desk and walls lined with records and CDs. It was on such a night that the fabric of reality seemed to thin, revealing the specters of imagination, or perhaps something beyond. The first note of discord struck when a burst of static erupted from the speakers, a harsh interruption to the smooth jazz that had been playing. I frowned, adjusting dials, attributing it to a technical glitch. Yet, as I leaned in, a voice emerged from the static, desperate and crackling with urgency. "This is a message for Alex Monroe of WJXM. You don't know me, but I know you. You must listen closely." The voice, unmistakably human, yet laced with an ethereal quality, spoke of an impending disaster, a calamity so severe it threatened to unravel the very fabric of our existence. It claimed to be from the future, a warning sent back with the hope of altering what was to come. Skepticism was my initial response, a natural defense against the absurdity of the situation. Yet, the voice provided details, specific events, and dates, all leading to a cataclysmic event. It was when the voice uttered my own secret doubts and fears, things I'd never shared, that ice ran through my veins. This wasn't a prank. The room felt smaller, the air tighter, as the weight of the message settled upon me. The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving a silence so profound it roared in my ears. Alone in the studio, I wrestled with the reality of the message. How could I, a mere voice in the night, prevent a disaster foretold by a voice from the future? The very idea seemed as fantastical as the plots of the horror novels that lined my shelves at home. Yet, the fear in the voice, the urgency of its plea, anchored me to a sense of responsibility I couldn't shake. I made a decision then, a vow whispered into the void of the studio. I would use my voice, this platform, to heed the warning given. The first rays of dawn were piercing the night sky as I formulated a plan. I would start with the details provided, investigate each claim. Convincing others would be a monumental task. The line between sounding the alarm and being branded a harbinger of madness was thin. Yet the fear of what might happen if I remained silent propelled me forward. It was a solitary path I had to walk, armed only with a voice that had to bridge time itself to prevent a future no one else had heard. As dawn crept over the city, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the reality of my situation began to take shape. With the first slivers of light filtering through the blinds of my studio, the night's events felt like a fever dream. Yet the echo of the voice from the future lingered, a constant reminder of the weight now resting on my shoulders. The morning brought clarity, but also a deepening sense of isolation. How does one bear the knowledge of an impending disaster, armed with nothing but a voice and a medium that thrives on skepticism? My day was spent in a flurry of activity, a contrast to the stillness that had enveloped me in the studio. I pored over news articles, scientific journals, and conspiracy forums, searching for any shred of evidence that might lend credibility to the warning. The voice had mentioned environmental catastrophes, technological malfunctions, and political upheavals, each event supposedly a domino leading to the ultimate collapse. Yet as the hours passed, my search yielded little beyond the ordinary turmoil of our world. The specifics, it seemed, were buried deeper than my frantic digging could reach. The isolation of my quest deepened as I attempted to share my concerns with others. Friends listened with a patience that thinly veiled their skepticism. Colleagues offered rational explanations, attributing the message to a sleep deprived hallucination or an elaborate hoax. Even those who indulged my theories did so with a detachment that suggested they humored me rather than believed. The divide between my conviction and their disbelief was a chasm I couldn't bridge, leaving me to wonder if the voice had chosen poorly in its messenger. Despite the doubt that crept into the edges of my resolve, the evening found me back in the studio, the microphone an anchor in the storm of uncertainty. The decision to use my show as a platform to spread the warning was fraught with risk. I feared alienating my audience, of crossing the invisible line that separated eccentricity from madness. Yet, as I spoke into the void, recounting the message from the future without revealing its source, I found a strange sense of liberation. I framed the warning as a thought experiment, a what if scenario, encouraging my listeners to consider the implications of our actions on the future. The response was immediate and varied. Calls flooded the station, a mix of support, curiosity, and derision. Some callers offered their own theories, weaving the warning into the fabric of their beliefs about the end times or alien intervention. Others accused me of fear-mongering, of exploiting the anxieties of the vulnerable for the sake of ratings. Yet, amid the voices, there were those who listened, truly listened. They shared their own fears and hopes, their personal resolutions to change, however small those steps might be. It was in these connections, these shared moments of vulnerability, that I found a flicker of hope. The voice from the future had tasked me with preventing a disaster, but perhaps its true intention was to ignite a conversation, to plant the seeds of change one broadcast at a time. The night wore on, and with each call, the weight of solitude lessened, replaced by a growing sense of community. As I signed off, the first light of dawn creeping once again into the sky, I realized that the journey ahead was not mine alone to bear. The message had been a catalyst, a spark in the darkness, but its power lay in the collective response it evoked. The future was not a fixed point, but a tapestry woven from the choices of the present. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose, I prepared to face the coming days, armed with nothing but a voice, and the hope that, together, we could alter the course of tomorrow. In the days that followed, my life became a delicate balancing act between reality and the realm of possibilities that the voice had opened up. The studio, once a sanctuary, now felt like the eye of an ever-tightening storm. Each broadcast was a tightrope walk, a blend of my usual programming with subtle references to the future warning. I threaded caution and concern into the fabric of my shows, weaving them into the music and stories I shared. My audience grew, drawn in by the mystery and the genuine fear that sometimes cracked my usually calm demeanor. The skepticism that had initially met my revelations began to wane, eroded by a series of unexplained events that mirrored the warning's predictions. Reports of erratic weather patterns, unusual technological disruptions, and political tensions filled the news. These occurrences, though not definitive proof, lent a chilling credence to the voice's message. My nightly discussions evolved into forums for debate and speculation, with listeners sharing their observations and fears. The community that had formed around my broadcasts became a collective of watchers, interpreting the signs and seeking to understand the implications. Amid this growing whirlwind of activity, I received an unexpected visit at the station. Dr. Lena Morgan, a scientist whose work I had referenced in one of my desperate attempts to find evidence supporting the voice's claims, stood in the dimly lit hallway. Her presence was commanding, her eyes holding a depth of knowledge and a flicker of the same fear that had taken root in my own heart. Lena had listened to my broadcasts, and rather than dismiss them, she saw the echoes of her own research, a study into temporal anomalies and their potential impact on our world. Our conversation unfolded in the privacy of the studio, a dance of words and theories that spanned the realms of science and speculation. Lena spoke of her work with a passion tinged with desperation, her findings dismissed by the scientific community as fringe science. Yet in her voice, I found a kindred spirit, someone who had also touched the edge of an unfathomable truth and was determined to pull it into the light. Together, we pored over the details of the voice's message, Lena providing the scientific perspective that my layman's understanding lacked. It was a collaboration forged from necessity, a shared mission to decipher the warning before time rendered it a eulogy for what could have been. The days turned into weeks, with Lena becoming a regular guest on my show. Our discussions, once veiled in ambiguity, grew more direct, challenging our listeners to confront the uncomfortable reality of our situation. We explored the science behind the possible futures, discussing the butterfly effect of small changes and the potential for significant impact. The response was transformative. What had begun as a solitary quest to broadcast a warning evolved into a movement, a collective endeavor to alter the course of our future. Yet, as our efforts gained momentum, so too did the resistance. Critics and skeptics launched their own campaigns, branding us as alarmists and fearmongers. The station faced pressure from advertisers and corporate sponsors, uneasy with the controversial turn my show had taken. Threats and challenges mounted, a stark reminder of the power of vested interests and the inertia of societal disbelief. Amidst this tumult, the voice returned. A second message, brief and urgent, broke through the static one evening as Lena and I reviewed our latest findings. Time grows short, it warned, but the path to salvation has been opened. Your voices have stirred the hearts of many. Do not falter now. The message was a beacon in the growing darkness, a reminder of the stakes at play. With the future speaking directly into our present, Lena and I resolved to push forward, to amplify our message and rally the collective will needed to avert the disaster looming on the horizon. The final act of our journey unfolded under the shadow of both anticipation and dread. The events foretold by the voice had begun to weave themselves into the fabric of our reality with alarming accuracy. Yet, as the storm clouds gathered, so too did a community united by a shared vision of a future that could still be altered. My broadcasts had become more than just a voice in the night. They were a rallying cry, a beacon for those who dared to dream of change. Dr. Lena Morgan and I had become inadvertent leaders in a movement that spanned beyond the confines of our city, touching hearts and minds across the globe. The studio, once a solitary island, was now the heart of a network pulsing with the energy of collective action. Our messages of hope and resilience, grounded in the scientific understanding Lena brought and the emotional appeal of my nightly narratives, had sparked a fire that no amount of skepticism could extinguish. As the date of the predicted catastrophe drew near, our efforts intensified. We organized community initiatives, environmental campaigns, and global discussions, leveraging every medium available to spread our message. The world watched, some with bated breath, others with scorn, as we stood at the precipice of what could either be our greatest triumph or our most profound regret. Then, on a day marked by an uneasy calm, the world changed. Not with the catastrophic finale foretold by the voice, but in a series of small, almost imperceptible shifts. Reports flooded in from around the globe. Agreements reached on climate action, breakthroughs in renewable energy, a de-escalation of conflicts that had simmered on the brink of disaster. It was as if the collective will of humanity, once awakened, had turned the tide, bending the arc of our future away from destruction. In the aftermath, the skeptics and critics remained, as they always would, questioning the validity of the warning and our response to it. Yet in the hearts of those who had heard the call and risen to meet it, there was no doubt. We had been given a glimpse into one possible future, a future we had chosen to rewrite. The studio on the night following the day that could have ended it all was silent, a reflective space where Lena and I pondered the journey we had undertaken. "Do you think it will last?" I asked, the microphone off, our words for each other alone. Lena's gaze met mine, her eyes reflecting the studio's soft light. "Change is the only constant," she replied. "What matters is that we've shown it's possible. The future is ours to shape, every day." My final broadcast was not a farewell, but an ode to the power of hope, a testament to the strength found in unity. I spoke of the voice from the future, a mysterious herald whose warning had become the catalyst for change. And as I signed off, I realized that the voice had given us more than just a warning. It had given us the opportunity to prove that when faced with the specter of our end, we could come together to write a different story. The night air was crisp as I left the studio for the last time, the stars above a tapestry of light undimmed by human folly. In the quiet, I understood that our story, this chapter of humanity's relentless pursuit of a better tomorrow, was but one note in the endless symphony of existence. And in that moment, I felt the weight of our journey lift, replaced by a simple, profound truth. In the harmony of hope, we find our greatest strength.